Montgomery County ranks among the most affluent communities in the United States. Now, increasingly, it seems like a tale of two communities, two counties, the haves in the East County versus the have-nots in the west part of the county. I'm sorry, I had that backwards. The haves in the western part of the county, the have-nots in the east part of the county. Well, the county takes pride in its diversity with a majority-minority population. But some of that minority, lower and middle income residents, face difficulty finding decent, affordable rental housing. And then, meanwhile, housing ownership in every age group has dropped from 1990 compared to 2019. Now, I've heard a figure cited by some of you in the candidates' debates and forums that the county needs some 30,000 affordable units immediately, but it's falling behind more and more every year. Mr. Sullivan, you get to answer the first time. What are you going to do about increasing affordable housing?
Well, actually, that's a great question. A lot of the things that people have been quoting, I believe, are based on a Council of Governments study from 2019. Now, that was really pre-COVID, and I would offer that we need to relook at that. Why? Because we've learned that during COVID, people can and will work from home. We're going to have north of 30% of the people who used to come into the nice shiny office buildings are going to be working from home. I think it's especially true of some of the younger, more tech-savvy job positions and people. What that means is people can work in Montgomery County from Frederick, from Pennsylvania, from different parts of the country. So what that means is you don't necessarily have to live in Montgomery County to work here. So I think we need to take a look at that so we can really determine what the real need here is in Montgomery County. I do believe, from what I've seen, there is an issue with affordable housing. I don't think that some of the plans, the Thrive 2050, is a plan which is I don't believe it's going to work. I think we have builders like EYA that have shown that the cost after they take a building down and rebuild up a quadruplex, those units are going to not be affordable, and they're not going to meet the goal that people really want to achieve. Also, they're going to displace established homes, the black and brown community that lived in these established homes. And I think that what we need to do is work towards building housing at various, like a metro stop, transit-oriented housing, so that we can have live, work, play zones where people can reach.
I just want to clarify, Thrive 2050 is the proposal for the master plan for Montgomery County. So if we use jargon, I just want to make sure our viewers are up to speed. Mr.
Absolutely.
Blair.
So I hope the viewers at home are starting to see trends. So we've talked about public safety, crime, jobs, traffic, and now housing. They're all going in the wrong direction. And so the elected leaders to my right, they've had decades to address these problems. I'm tired of waiting, right? These are actionable things that we could be doing. Other parts of the country are making meaningful progress, and we're not. It sounds a lot like, a county council meeting from 2012 or 2014 or 2016 to my right. And so as it relates to affordable housing, yes, we have a crisis that needs to be addressed, and it affects you, because this is our quality of life. We need nurses here. We need teachers, and they can't afford to live here. And if they can't afford to live here, eventually they say, I don't want to drive 45 minutes, and I'm going to work in Howard County or Frederick County or someplace else. I was actually with the CEO of Adventist Healthcare, big hospital system here in Montgomery County. Number one thing, so he has to hire 600 nurses in the next 2 years, he said. Number one thing was affordable housing. He needed housing. And so we see affordable housing, it could be workforce housing, any kind of housing we need here. We also have great opportunities in Montgomery County. We actually have parcels of land that we could be utilizing. So whether it's land near our metros, right, which would be a great place. It's where our 25-year-old son would love to live, right? Because where he could live in an apartment, go down the elevator, jump on the metro, go to his job. So those mixed income, mixed use developments, we could be building them around our metros. We also have county-owned land that we could be better taking advantage of. Because if you truly want affordable housing, You need affordable land, and the land's pretty expensive in Montgomery County. But if the county owns it, we can dictate the terms to the developers. So this is a crisis. I believe it's a fundamental right. If you work in this county, you should be able to afford to live in this county, and that's the kind of action that I'm going to bring as your county executive.
Mr. Elrich?
So we've already put 18 properties on the market. We've got over 90 bids for the property. Our intention is not to sell them and make money on them, but basically to make them available to affordable housing developers to do basically what David said, which is control what we get. We've got experience with this. We're doing it in Wheaton off of Veers Mill Road, where we're building 192 units. All the units will be affordable to people below $75,000 in income down to $30,000 in income. So that's important, but it's not enough. Even if I get a couple hundred units of affordable units per of each of these 18 lots, it's not going to solve a deficit of 50,000 units that would meet any of the future needs. We don't do enough to require affordable housing. Our so-called vaunted MPDU program, which everybody likes to brag about, until you realize that it has 6,700 MPDUs left in the county, which is like a drop in the bucket when you think about the number of people who need affordable housing. It doesn't serve people in the lower income brackets, but it also doesn't serve people who make more than the maximum MPDU income and less than market rate. It is ironic, but in Bethesda, you need a $100,000 income to afford a market rate unit. The market rates there for a one bedroom start around $2,500. For a two bedroom, they start about $4,000. Good luck finding a three bedroom unit in Bethesda. And when you find it, they'll be $6,000 or $7,000. So nobody who needs affordable housing is going to get it there. We need to require a broader range of affordability. I will put forward a bill that would expand the MPDU program to include people down to $30,000 incomes and up to $100,000. And I would require a greater amount of the developments to be affordable within that range. And I'm serious, you've got to get up around 30 or 35% of all the units in order to make this work. The good news for developers is subsidizing people making $100,000 doesn't mean they have to take a haircut. But we've got to do a better job of providing. We talk about complete streets. We need to build complete communities, and that means affordable housing for everybody, and not a smattering of units followed by lots of luxury housing.
Okay. Mr. James?
Yes, we have a crisis all the time, and it's driven from developers. Our whole mindset is a plantation mindset. We supposedly solved this affordable housing thing back in 1974 when they set up the HOC. But what that does, that provides building of equity for rich people that build these units, and we've got institutionalized renting. So if we take that money instead, provide it for home ownership, everybody knows that's own a home that after a few years it becomes more and more affordable. My daughter just moved out. She had no problem. It wasn't a crisis. She moved in with three of her friends, and they're paying $500 a month for a really nice house. So as to the extent that it's a crisis, but my wife works at Shady Grove Hospital, and a lot of the younger nurses do commute from Frederick and sometimes Hagerstown, and it is a long commute. But if we put a personal rapid transit up there, they can get to work in 20, 25 minutes. So we by extending the reach of everybody, we extend the opportunity for cheaper land. And if this transit-oriented development stuff is just packing people like cordwood, and at very expensive, like Marc said, very expensive units. There's a lot of land we can put. I would use something called AI to actually search the entire county to find the optimal places to put housing. We can look at the biggest cost of housing is interest. And there's, for 90 years, there's been a interest-free lending circle in Switzerland. We can actually, like the Habitat for Humanity, provide interest-free lending, and that'll chop the cost of housing in half.
Okay, Mr. Riemer.
Well, I want my two boys to have the opportunity to live in this county. I want all of our kids to have a chance to live in this county. And I want our empty nesters and retirees to be able to stay in this county. And that is not the trajectory that we're on. We are a housing shortage community. We're becoming like the West Coast, where the workforce has to live in entirely different jurisdictions, and your teachers can't continue to teach in your class because they've had to move to get somewhere where they can raise their growing family, because your community doesn't want to create enough townhouses and enough, normal middle class housing. Those are the issues that we're grappling with, and it's affecting people at every level of income. It's a crisis. We need a county executive who's going to spend more time being creative and making things happen, and less energy just criticizing and getting in the way and saying no. So that's why I supported the regional housing strategy. The Council of Governments came together to say we're all going to work harder to create more housing. County executive opposed that. That's why I proposed accessory dwelling units, basement apartments, and the backyard cottages. It's a great solution. It's a practical solution. County executive opposed that. That's why I supported lifting the moratorium on new housing. County executive opposed lifting that moratorium. We need creative thinking, like how do we get the bus parking lot in Shady Grove, get the buses out of there so we can build some housing there and get that community growing again. Our county executive voted against master plan after master plan, the new housing in Montgomery Village or in Silver Spring around the Purple Line or even in downtown Bethesda. Voted no, voted no, voted no. So, we recently had a debate over whether to put housing on the Chevy Chase Library site. Had to drag the county executive to get support for that idea. We still aren't there yet. We need an executive who believes that we have a problem and is going to take action. And if we don't, the path that we're on is going to lead to more homelessness, a tougher time to be here in the workforce, and fewer retirees being able to stay.
All right, you just challenged the county executive before we go to Mr. Elrich on rebuttal. Does anyone else have rebuttal that they believe they're entitled to? Mr. County Executive.
So Hans doesn't know very much about zoning and doesn't know much about county's growth policy. The county is, all the growth projections don't change with Thrive. In fact, the growth projections predate Thrive. They're based on the zone capacity of Montgomery County today and all the master plans that we did together. And most of what's in the master plan is the kind of housing you're talking about, townhouses and smaller units, because the density is concentrated in places like Bethesda and Wheaton and Silver Spring. So we had already planned for this development. We planned for it at a scale that was more likely to be developed as affordable than building high rises. High rises aren't expensive because developers are bad people. You start out with construction costs of $400, $500 a square foot. It is almost impossible to bring those down in quantity to affordability. I didn't oppose the number of things that were built. I opposed the height. I opposed the density, because if we had built more lower buildings, we would have had more affordable housing out of those lower buildings. And if the government had to subsidize units, it would have been a lot cheaper for us to subsidize it.
Okay. How do you feel that he either attacked you or that you need a rebuttal?
I need a rebuttal, yeah. County executive said I know anything about zoning.
You don't?
Okay, yes.
County executive.
That would be correct.
Yeah.
1 minute.
His talk is hocus pocus. Really. What is this stuff that he's saying? It's all a disguise over his resistance and opposition to new housing. There's always a reason. Oh, it's too high. Oh, it's too dense. Oh, it's not in the right place. That's how you create a housing shortage. That's how it's done. It's textbook. That's what our county executive has been fighting for decades, to limit the amount of housing in Montgomery County. Guess what we have today? A housing shortage, and it's killing us. We've got to do something. We need leadership that gets it.